Yeah, no, this is going to be a really cool conversation. I've known Curtis for almost a decade now, I think. Worked a lot with him in restaurants. It's really cool to kind of see, where he's going with his role and everything he's evolved with at Pau Hana. My, quick background is I'm a chef. I'm, working with GoTab as restaurant operations expert, and I've also was the founder of a opsi, our uh, our operations tool and operations layer on the inventory, recipe costing, invoice processing side. It's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. Curtis has seen really from day one of what opsi was and has almost a decades of experience of seeing the evolution, the growth of opsi, and how he has taken his own approach in applying the tool that is opsi inside his own operations. And Curtis, love to hear some more of your background for people that don't really know who you are as much as I know who you are.
Yeah.
And would love to just give you the opportunity to talk about more about like what is Pau Hana, where did it start with, what is it today, and kind of where do you see it going?
Yeah. I'm Curtis. I got a lot of background in cooking and opening restaurants, from Sixsmith, Spoon and Stable, small pop and shops in small towns. So I kind of been all over. I helped open Pau Hana from day one, which was great. And then Pau Hana's been the one restaurant that I've stuck with there. Normally I open a restaurant and kind of just with the opening team and I kind of move on and I go to the next restaurant and it's been good. And Pau Hana really brought the Ohana, the family into it. So I've really stuck into that. So it's been really good in that role.
That's
That's
awesome.
kind of my background, stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, and you've recently taken on, well, maybe not too recently, but in like the last 6 months, you've taken on this new role as director of operations, overseeing more of the portfolio in the group. How has that kind of evolved your day-to-day role from the executive chef to a director role?
yeah, it's been definitely more from going from just cooking to prepping to peeling snap peas all day and be like, well, that's what I did all day. And now it's more of like the front of house, the bar, there's a lot more steps into what I'm doing, a whole second restaurant. So it's been really a lot, but it's been easy with Opsy in the sense of like just everything's not in my head anymore. It's making that role better for me and in taking the next step in a career of that's something that I've really never done.
Mhm.
I'm used to cooking and being a fry cook and then moving up and then making a team that can work in that sense of just the line.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember my transition, and I was so like caught up in if people didn't see me holding a knife or cutting something or like working at the line, I really felt like perceptually I wasn't doing anything, but there's all this other stuff that no one ever really sees happen in the background before they get there at the end of the night, emails and schedules and all this other stuff. So, with that, I mean, it's a great leading question to what I really want to talk about is like, how has this become, the change with one location to multiple locations, the difficulty of managing it personally on your side, and then kind of like what is the inflection point for you in which you realize that it's system like OPSI or systems themselves become really, really important for your success, your team's success, and like just the general success of the restaurant moving forward every day without, you know, you having to be there to do it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's been huge. Like I was driving home the other day and I actually had this realization like I'm living off notifications now on my phone, which is it's crazy to think about of like I both restaurants are kind of doing they're very different, right? And then I go from one that everyone's putting in orders and they're doing the recipes, but I get the notification like, oh, this order's good. This order has been sent in. Now it's been received. I'm like, okay, it's doing it and I see it working. And it's the same concept of this recipe was edited. I'm like, okay, why did
Mhm.
we edit that recipe? What did we change? And that it just I can see that. So just me taking the next step in that role is really I'm able to still see the restaurant work in without being there. I'm still
Yeah.
being able to be like, oh, okay, they're looking at it and I can see the orders going through and I can even see how many times they looked at a recipe, which is if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty on it, it's like, oh my gosh, we looked at the ghost aioli 783 times this week. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Like those little details when you start going into it, and it's like, cool. I enjoy that part of it. And like it's helping me grow in the same aspect.
Hmm. Yeah, letting go is a high level of growth that, in my opinion, takes a ton of maturity. It's been like me personally seeing you grow into this has been an incredible path. I mean, the thing that I think about is like standardization, and being a cook or a chef first. Like, how do you see some of the standardization support your continued creativity inside these operations or alongside, the day-to-day leaders inside those operations to make sure that what the idea of like Pau Hana being in Minnesota, being married to a person from Hawaii, be that type of concept is like so specific. Um, how does that like how do these systems help you keep the car on the track as you're making sure that they're not losing the through line of what Pahana is supposed to be? And does it like enable your team to, be more creative, or does it allow you to like kind of not feel like you have to be there every day? And I know you do, but physically completely different.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Like the chefs here, we create a special every week. We get fresh fish flown in every week. So we have another whole aspect of that, and I'm able to see that special being built within the program before I even see the dish.
Mhm.
Then I can be like, okay, I see what's going on. I see what's going on. I see the price of what it's costing, and I'd be like, okay, this is what a Hawaiian dish would look like in if you've been to Hawaii. Or I mean, Hawaiian's a big melting pot, so it's hard to keep that line of the dishes that we keep and straying away from Minnesota food, right?
Mhm.
So it helps me where I don't have to be there monitoring, micromanaging the chefs in the sense of like, all right, this isn't right. How much did this cost? The program's already doing that. So
Mhm.
it's they can see that, and I can take even a further step back because they can already see the numbers. They already know I'm going to come at the situation like Kurt's going to be like, this is too much cost. I can see it. They can see the number. They know the percent we're looking for. So that's helpful. And then just standardizing of just the cooks on the line. For example, it was probably a month ago or two ago, but we have a breakfast pizza on the menu, and we had a new cook and he's working pizza, and I was like, there's no bacon on this pizza. And he literally came up to me, showed me the phone on the opsi and the recipe, and he's like, there's no bacon in the recipe. And I was like, well, that's on us. So that alone was me just the standard is there. As long as it's built in the program and the team knows that's what we use, it makes it that much easier on everyone's end.
Yeah, no, I mean, I echo that a million times. That it was always like the biggest thing for written, documented recipes and standards for me it was like the unlock of allowing myself to just kind of not have to feel like I had to stand over people. You being in more than one place at a time, I know the restaurants aren't close to one another, so like driving between them to be there is a huge hurdle. And you hit on a couple of things there, right? The creativity, I think one, I'm really interested in the perspective of you now have a depth and breadth of knowledge of like Hawaiian culture and the type of food that you're looking to cook inside your restaurant. Um, it's really interesting to see like the recipes play a portion of that to keep your team standardized, like both from the ideation, which ideation I think used to be the hard part, and the costing used to be easier. Go back 5 years when things weren't so crazy, 6 years. But now it seems like the tables have turned a little bit where cost is the trickiest thing when it comes to supply chain and it comes to changing pricing and making sure things are anchored. And as you mentioned, buying fish from all over the world, flying it in once or twice a week. Um, how has like some of this affected your visibility into the costing and the purchasing side of it? Like start with the creation of a dish and making sure your team is kind of going down that path in the appropriate way that you expect it to, not completely blow out your bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, well, basically, we take a recipe and we're building it from the ground up. Sauces, the fish, and as you start putting that stuff into that recipe and you're building it, sometimes you get all the way done. You're like, that's not going to work. Like for example, we're trying to come up with a new steak dish on it and on the menu, and you look at it and you're like, it's 52% food costs on there, and you're like, it's not going to work. Can we do to cut that? How can we make that go down? In that sense, and just building the recipes alone, then you have multiple sauces on there, so now you can use those things as well. So it's been good in just the recipe aspect of it for sure. In the team, multiple people putting recipes in there, um, in that realm, and just ordering alone.
Yeah. It sounds like the granulization of like knowing having the visibility into like the sauce that then goes on the plate with the steak to actually be able to drill down. A lot of the times people kind of attribute cost changes to the entirety of the dish.
Yeah.
The reality generally is it's like one or two things that are happening, right? Like the steak
Hmm.
jumped 15% in price and you don't know why or when. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and
kind of
exact
the purchasing piece, right?
Yeah, and exactly. Like when you're looking at things and you're looking at opsi and you see a dish, like you can fluctuate. Everything's going to fluctuate. Like what was that 2 years ago? Eggs skyrocketed, and now we're trying to figure eggs out, and we're like, holy cow, like what's going on? But you can see those details within the recipe and that, and then you can track it all the way down to be like, okay, it's the eggs that are causing this whole thing to go up and down right now. What's our moves? How do we fix that? So you can, it's not only just the recipe and building that, but you can get down to what actual piece of the ingredient is skyrocketing the whole dish.
That's another great point. Like, has there been an instance so far since you've been using Opsi at Pau Hana that you've been able to like identify some price creep or anything that's been inching up on prices that were kind of flying underneath the radar?
Yeah, I mean, not with food particular. I mean, yeah, food's going to fluctuate up and down, so we see that we monitor. That's an everyday thing. If you're a chef, you've been looking at that since day one. I think obviously just looking at the graph in that
Mhm.
world helps. But as taking on this new role of the director and moving from the back of house to front, I'm learning that there's obviously more costs, napkins, silverware, all of that, right? Recently, we just had a napkin situation where the contract was signed at a certain price and that price was never changed within the company of the napkins. So opsi tracked it and I was looking at the graph. I'm like, that's something's wrong here, so and I tracked it all the way back and I audited the whole situation. I threw in every invoice for the last year and it tracked it, and it was about a $5,000 amount of money that we paid that we shouldn't have paid. So
Uh,
it already paid for itself in the realm of just one little graph of napkins.
I mean, the food thing is interesting. I think that's sometimes that's what I see a lot of when talking to operators. Everyone's like really hyper focused on food because food is very volatile today.
Yeah.
Um, the napkin is a really interesting example because it's very easy to forget about like what is the cost of the napkin, what is the cost of the deli container, what are the costs of the bags that you're putting food in for to go. Like, it's not table stakes. It's super meaningful, and to your point, like it can be thousands and thousands of dollars that kind of just like bleed over every single month. And when you compound that over a year, it's a huge impact on, which a lot of restaurants are on these very thin margins. And it's a super meaningful amount. And it's an interesting uh happenstance of just some of that. And I think it is important to kind of call to that fact of not everything that goes into the system is food. Not knowing your costs on napkins can be super impactful. So it's interesting that you call that out because we're always talking about food costs and how we affect food cost. Um, what was like what was the long tail on that? Was that from the start of the year? Was it something that was happening over like 3 months? When did that start happening? And how long did, I guess, post doing the invoice processing, looking at some of these reports, were you able to find out how quickly to surface?
This was a contract that was signed last year, so this has been going on for several months. I would say within the first week of us getting the invoice processing that it flagged it.
Mhm.
And I don't think, personally, I don't think we would have ever caught it without it, just because it all of a sudden just kind of changed. And so that was the number now we're seeing. And so I truly don't think we would have caught that without the graph and me seeing that it spiked, the whole thing looked off because it
Mhm.
normally the line was just doing this and then it just went and then it just dropped. So it was just one of those things where it's like we would have just lost that.
Yeah. What is in lieu of a system like opsi, what is the catch? Like, how would you find that otherwise, other than maybe pouring over spreadsheets, like just staring at the docs and trying to put it all together?
Staring at the docs, print every invoice from that, and then go through and find the where it jumped and where it didn't. And if we would have ever noticed the 3 cents that the next invoice changed,
Hmm.
because I mean it's not a crazy amount per napkin that was different, right? And it wasn't just the napkins, it was a little bit of a mix of everything. But when you see an invoice and this napkin was 9 cents and then the next time it was 11 cents, it's hard to see that from one invoice to the next. So that's where I don't think we would have been able to catch that unless I truly went and picked one vendor and printed everything off and just highlighted each line until I saw the jump back.
Yeah,
And
that's
we're
interesting.
and at that point we're talking days and hours of my time when all I did was with the invoice processing, I just took every invoice that we had already in our system and I just popped it into opsi and it did all the work. I didn't do any work. I just claimed that I did it
Oh,
now.
don't tell yourself short, Curtis. You do a lot of work. Um, uh, no, I mean that it's yeah, it's an interesting point, and that's also a thing I don't think people put enough value on is their time. It's the most finite thing that we have. You can't buy more of it, and spending all that time trying to find this thing, it might feel really impactful and valuable, but people in your position very often discount what the value of their time actually is. So knowing that it could have taken you a day or two to work on this and find it, but knowing the fact that, how much is your hourly rate? No one really calculates it, or you're willing to devalue it to do the work yourself. That's a really important point too. Like speed is of paramount importance now. I want to rewind this back. I have a bit of an agenda. I want to do a little screen share and kind of show some recipe building because that's what I do most days. But I want to kind of talk about like what are you seeing sometimes? What are like the most overlooked mistakes inside your recipes when it comes to costing? Is it the underlying understanding of like yields? Is it the way things are being prepped and how they're being utilized inside the restaurant? Like, has there been any hurdles that you've seen with your team as you start implementing this tool to help them understand costs? Anything anecdotal that you've come into?
I would say the yield is kind of the one of the bigger hurdles. Sometimes, working on recipes, one chef will put everything in grams and it will make a half a pint because he doesn't need to make 32 pints or quarts for what he's trying to figure out, right? So then
Mhm.
that's what he'll go in and be like, the recipe's in there, and next thing you know, the prep cook is going in there and she made a pint for service, and you're like, what happened here? And so adjusting those and then going back and then realizing like, okay, so the goal at the end of the day too is to get everything scaled to one quart. So when the prep cook comes and we go and it's just a two times, she knows to make two quarts or he knows to make two quarts. Because at the end, when we use the prep list, the task list on opsi, everything automatically populates now, where anyone off the street could come in and count how many quarts of the ranch we have or the miso vin and put that into the system, and it'll automatically populate that we need to prep that item. Now that everything is, the yields are in there, 2 quarts of ranch, oh, we need to make 7 more quarts of that according to our pars that we have. So it makes it really simple again, where I don't have to go look and be like, okay, we have this. It makes it a lot easier to train the next person to just go on their phone and plug in the numbers.
Yeah, instead of harassing people over prepping or under
Yeah,
prepping, running out of
yeah,
stuff, or
exactly.
throwing a bunch of stuff in the
And then
trash.
and then with that, there comes a point where, like, let's say we do over prep, which happens. It's going to happen no matter what. It's a restaurant. You adjust. So we go through the waste log as well, and that's in opsi. We plug that in there, and I can go back and be like, we threw away this month alone 8 quarts of a sauce,
Hmm.
and then you just go back to the prep list and you adjust that par, and now you're not throwing away those quarts again.
That's great. Yeah. It's a huge point. I mean, that's waste is monster in restaurants like this. Um, that's cool. Well, I want to kind of just share my screen real quick and build a pizza recipe with you, because you're the pizza guy now. Um, and kind of just walk through, the speed in which some of this can happen. I've loaded a ton of stuff in here. This is what we generally demo on. Um, I have a quick pizza recipe I kind of want to throw together here. I was calling it earlier today because I don't know if I told you, Curtis, I'm starting to make pizzas in my backyard with my little.
Yeah, you keep sending me videos, and we got to work on what you got going on there.
Oh, I appreciate that. Um, so there's obviously a lot of information in these. We're just going to really add the name, make sure it's food, notes. We do have beverage. Would love to kind of go into that. I know you just started taking over the beverage purchasing for the group and
Yeah,
talking about that
that's
work,
been great. I've actually been using that beverage tab a lot lately.
building the cocktails.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. But I just want to add things in real quick. So like in the background here, we have a lot of conversions. So like understanding the actual cost of items based on your purchasing. So from a lot of my experience and a lot of the stuff that I worked through with Curtis over the years as we were kind of coming through kitchens together is how do we buy and how do we use is a really different thing. So you might buy pizza dough in a case. It might be each's, but we know each one is 8 ounces. So we buy 8 ounce balls of pizza dough in the case. I think there's like 64 per case. When we add it in, we have that conversion in the background pulled down from the invoice data that tells us actually what is the cost per each. This might be cheap, but Curtis, you can tell me if I'm wrong. The, the next thing we might add onto here is just our pizza sauce. There it is. And this is a sub recipe. I'm going to go with 4 ounces. I think we're going to stretch this thing out to about 18 inches is my goal. Uh, we're gonna do pepperoni on here. We're gonna add some sliced pepperoni. And we're gonna add 30 slices. And the last thing is shredded mozz. So we'll add some shredded mozzarella and we'll do 4 ounces as well. Does that kind of check out, Kurt?
Yeah. That-
Volume wise, weight
Yep.
wise.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, that looks good. What we normally do, roughly.
the reason all this is really important, and we'll just bulk add prep steps while I'm talking, but all the reason this is all really important is because like one, and Curtis can tell me if I'm wrong and call me on some bullshit if I'm lying, but the important part is like really getting down to speed and writing recipes fast. So invoice processing is super important here. The fact that we try and pull as much data off the invoice or also have baked in conversions in the background to make sure that you're getting down to from where you purchase to where the way you use it inside your recipe, and also being able to link recipes. So like this pizza sauce is not just a purchased pizza sauce; it's a component recipe that we made with yields, prep, all the good stuff that you need to actually make this pizza sauce. That then draws that underlying cost out based on how much you're putting on your pizza. But to be able to drill in theoretically to see, I'm imagining, Kurt, this is kind of where you guys are looking when you're writing all your recipes, is this theoretical cost based on your most recent purchases to make sure it's kind of falling in line. But being able to see that, I think, is really important because in real time, knowing where you're going to land when you start this process versus assuming you're going to land in the right place is a different calculus altogether. Um, but the idea is that you can move quickly and allow teams like Curtis and his teams to be able to get recipes out fast, stay in the costing sphere as quickly as possible, and also obviously stay consistent, which I think for me is the most important thing. I'm not much of a talker when it comes to making sure the recipes are the right recipes, but um, having this all baked out, and now that we have our pizza recipe, there it is. Um, Again, I just want to call it one thing that Curtis brought up: scaling. We can scale recipes all the way up here. So being able to tell, a prep cook, like we need a 5x batch, and Curtis is making everything based on a number 10 cans that they buy, makes it much easier to kind of have that prep
Yeah,
go out.
and with that, there's even one more step even further. There's days where your order gets shorted, or you only have 3 cans of that tomato sauce. You can actually tap that can there, and yep, exactly. And you can put 3 cans there, and now you can make that exact recipe to what you have. There's I didn't think we would use that often, but it's becoming more and more of like, oh my gosh, we only have one thing of buttermilk for this ranch. how do we make this? How do we scale this? And it will adjust right then and there of like it's a 3.75 scale. So
Mhm.
now we can make that correct recipe with what we have in house instead of me going to Target, spending 20 minutes going to buy one buttermilk, and now I'm behind because I had to go get one ingredient. So that I mean that's been a big thing as well.
Yeah, and buying that buttermilk from Target or wherever you get it from, your costs are going to be wildly sideways
Exactly.
based on just one purchase. Cool. Thanks for appeasing me there and letting me share the screen real quick. I know the next question because I've had a lot of these conversations is always about like language and the barriers. A lot of Spanish first speaking employees. Do you have any of that where you're at, like inside the restaurants? Has it become a barrier for you, or how are you guys kind of working with that? If it is something you are working against.
Yeah, I would say 75% of the back of house staff is Spanish speaking. Some are multi-language, some just strictly Spanish. So there is the hurdle there in that realm. I can speak a little Spanish, but it doesn't come to a point where I know everything, right? But the opsi tool is one of the bigger things that works. For example, we have a girl named Vero, and she is a star player where she does the prep list. She's doing recipes, but she speaks zero English. I
Mhm.
mean, unless she's just lying to me and she's making fun of me throughout the day, but you know, she can take a recipe, screenshot it, put it into her translate, and now she can make the recipe. She doesn't ask, she doesn't be like, "Hey, what's this?" It's right then and there. Same for the prep list. If she doesn't know let's say we add something new to the prep list, she just screenshots it and go, "This is what it is."
Mhm.
So that alone is a huge thing where I don't have to grab my phone, translate for 30 minutes to a new cook that has no idea. They understand how that works, and they're pretty good about just knowing that they need to translate in within the world that we navigate. And same with the chefs here. It works for them where then they don't have to do the same thing and hold their phone and try to get a point across, because there is going to be, even with the translate, there's going to be stipulations that don't translate well when
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
when you're typing on the fly, and it doesn't work that way every time.
yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. That's a lot of what I saw. And I mean, that's a lot of what I hear is, um, the yeah, I've heard your Spanish. It's not super great, and mine isn't either. So it's not a knock on you. But I echo that because no one wants to talk to me in Spanish, and they just kind of want to work. Um, and it's interesting. I mean, you kind of bring it all back to where we started is like, you're taking on this new role. You've gone from daily executive chef inside the restaurant on the line kind of cooking. Now you're taking more of this macro view of 30,000 feet. I know we're not at the second location yet with you, fingers crossed we want to be. But how do you see potentially, if that is the path you want to go down, how do you see this kind of like evolving for yourself and for your team, or even just knowing what you know today based on your current role in the director role? How do you see it affecting your day to day, or how do you see it enhancing or making things easier? What could it potentially help you with?
Well, I mean, just alone of like going to the next restaurant, we slightly use it using Pau Hana's platform, so it's been working that way. Um, and we will be getting it into the other restaurants. So just we'll talk about that later. But I think just ordering alone, like with another new thing that I've been taking on is the liquor ordering and the beer ordering and the wine ordering at the other location at Lake and Irving. And to be honest with you, I don't drink a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot, and I'm very humble about that. Where I will tell you, I don't know.
Mhm.
I can make some eggs on a flat top, but I can't shake a cocktail. I don't know what goes into what. Um, I like Ham's beer, so that's what I know.
Yeah.
But it's a point now where we have like 10 different vendors of where we order liquor from, and I can go on opsi and I can plug in what I need, and again it will automatically tell me what I need from the pars that I built. And but now on top of that, it will tell me where each vendor, each bottle is coming from. There's a lot of different things where the tequila comes from this person and the whiskey comes from this person, but this whiskey
Mhm.
actually comes from this person. So I can plug those in, and it's helping me grow and learn, even on top of just getting the orders in. I don't like to just do things without knowing. I would rather know why this is happening or how. So I think that's been helpful in that sense of just helping me learn. what things are for what.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. That's interesting. Um, we're running up on time here for some of the stuff that I wanted to ask. The last thing I kind of wanted to put out there is like any guidance, any advice, where you've been, what you're growing into, um, based on how the way you use opsi, like anything that you think is valuable, key takeaways that you appreciate or value with it.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is valuable. Like it saves me time. Like I said, I've been living through notifications through my phone for the last 6 months, it feels like, of taking on this new role. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it helps me get away and detach from my days off. And not only do I run the restaurants, I also run a whole eBay business on top of that. So I go home, I drive home, and I can sit there and I can work on that while also just opening my phone and grabbing an app and being like, oh, they've got all the orders and I don't need to worry about the day anymore. So it's very helpful in that in helping me grow. And I think the a big thing is that the whole team is able to grab that phone that they have every day. Everyone's got a phone.
Hmm.
Everyone's got it. So that's easier for them to grab and then screenshot a recipe or send it to me and be like, hey, this is wrong, or hey, can we change this? Or so it really helps in that realm.
Nice. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's huge. Um, I always go back to time. You know, you can't get more of it. How do you value
Yeah.
it? Don't undervalue yours. I think you're clearly not undervaluing yours, especially as you grow into this new position and kind of take on more. Um, and I've seen a lot of different situations. I think that's what kind of helps set people apart. People that are going to be successful in your position and positions like yours are the ones that understand when it's important to be like wildly involved or when it's best to create and set up those systems so that your teams can run and be successful without having you to be like the keystone or the linchpin of their day-to-day options or operations and just making sure things are getting done because really guests and the people coming into restaurants make sure they want to come in for consistency and a good experience.
Yeah, and I think with that too of just getting away from just us building recipes and consistency, I think it's even great for the front of house staff of just allergies.
Mm,
There was a point in the career where chef made a call was every 10 seconds of like, hey, is there sesame seed in this? Is there peanuts in this? Is there whatever the case may be? Is there dairy? And now we have a station where that's where an iPad lives, that's where Opsy lives, and they just go to it and they type in the recipe that they want to look at or the whole or the dish, and they just click it and they're like, oh, okay, there's dairy in this, they can't have this, but what is the dairy that's in the dish? Now they can click that little button and they can be like, okay, we just take this sauce out, and then they can have that dish. So that alone is like, again, saving the time and the headache of what's in this dish. And it's also a training tool for them as well of just like they know everything without us having to make every single dish every week and pre-shift every single dish every week. They're learning as they go as well.
that's a great call out. So you're applying this across front and back of house. You're having like the service team utilize all the content that is inside like the Opsy recipe side to basically self-educate instead of having them kind of chew your ear out to pass.
Yeah, I think having the home base iPad has been a real game changer at Pau Hana, where that's where they punch in their orders, that's where they look to see the reservations, and now that's where they look to see allergies and what's in a dish. Even the specials, they can look at I mean, let's be honest, we're all not going to remember the pre-shift that we just took 30 seconds and then go get triple sat and then be like, wait, what was the dish special actually? We just pre-shifted it. There's a lot going on, so now they can just go to that. And normally when I do it, I write a note on there. I write the price of what it is within the opsi. I take a picture of it and I post it in there. So now they know what it should look like, what the price of it is for them to sell it at, what the allergies are, and all those little details.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. There's it's very often put on the back of house to just be like a since it's food, it's back there in the kitchen, but you know, your team needs to know what's going on in the food and you building that system again allows them to just kind of operate autonomously without having to like be worried about not having access of it, which I think is super important. Um, that's cool. Patricia, I want to tag you in here. I know you had some other questions or any audience questions that might be out there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, actually I neglected to let people on the call use the chat to ask any questions that you have. I had a couple, and it's kind of a variation on what I had sent. So, Curtis, I think when we talked before, this is the first time that you used opsi from the beginning at Pau Hana, correct? Hana. So what was the process of transitioning like the existing restaurant that you're on? Like, can you talk through what that process is going to look like for you guys? I know you guys use your chef language to describe it, but maybe you could kind of say, well, this is how I'm thinking about moving into this system for the other restaurant.
Yeah, I think it's I won't sell it short. It is work. You do have to put work in on the back end to make it work. It doesn't just all of a sudden go, oh, it's there. So basically, for me, with the new restaurant of implementing OPSI would just be starting with the recipes, just putting those in there, and building that out. So then we can see the allergies. We can see what if we're even hitting the food costs on some of those. I know we use other programs for that, and we have our little notes, but are we hitting all those points on there when we're building that? So my first step with another restaurant is just to start with recipes and getting that baseline for the back of house so they can start going on it. It is a transition to go from a book of paper to a phone or an iPad on a wall. But you can also just print those recipes and keep that book. But at least someone down the line has access to everything where it can just be right there for them.
And I guess I don't see any questions from the attendees. I want to give each of you an opportunity to kind of say any closing thoughts. Like now that you've had this conversation, you kind of walk through what the experience has been like. Any closing thoughts for the people that listen or listen to the recording?
I
Who
mean,
wants to go
I could
first?
start. I Curtis is a wealth of knowledge. He is not shy with feedback. So, it's really great to be working with operators that are actually really caring about the way the product's built. I think that's a bit of a standout of what we do with OPSI, and I wholeheartedly believe that with GoTab as well. Now that I'm kind of sinking in further there, but um, everything that we're building is really meant to make someone like Curtis in his position in his role as a transition or step into a first executive chef position or a GM of a restaurant is make things easier than in a reasonable way. Um, and it's always it's always nice to talk to Curtis, but it's great to hear kind of like all the positive impact that this tool that he's now seen for such a long time actually take effect in his life in a bigger way.
Yeah. Curtis, any final
Yeah,
thought?
yeah. I mean, like you said, I've been working on this program for a while, and I'm sure James is getting sick of my 3 a.m. text messages when I need help with something because I'm that's the time I have. Don't that's sometimes that's what we get, and I think it's been great. Just alone, it's saving time. It's saving time for everyone of just the headache of not having to know everything in my head and being able to just spread that throughout the teams. Um, so that's been super good. I've even thought about getting it for my eBay business of like my inventory alone. Now that I'm seeing like it's not just a back of house tool, it's a whole business restaurant tool. And I could easily apply that to the eBay world that I have. I mean, it has the same expenses of every little detail of the shipping costs alone. So like seeing the numbers up front and seeing where things go, it's been super good.
Yeah, I can imagine it reduces your stress level a lot when you don't have to wonder what's going on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Nice. Well, I really want to thank both of you. It's been really interesting and rewarding to see how the tool has helped you in your career, Curtis, and I'm really excited to see what's coming next. Maybe I could get an invitation to your poke festival.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.